Hey, my girls. I am not looking forward to today's episode. I'm just being honest and transparent with y'all. I'm not looking forward to talking about this situation. But if you're watching this, if you're scrolling past the reel, I need you to stop. This episode is going to help you heal from the hurt that your mother has caused you. This episode is going to help you become a better mom. If you are a mom, if you have been hindered and feel like you don't even want to become a mother because of the relationship what you had from your mother, this episode is that. If you're my family and you watching, I'm gonna speak on it and I'm gonna speak on all of it. So if it's gonna bother you, just keep scrolling. Um, I think that I asked God to increase this ministry. I asked Him to increase it beyond what I could think. He has increased it beyond what I could think. He has provided all of the financial provisions to take care of everything for it. It has absolutely nothing to do with me. He truly gets all the glory in it. And providing that, this past week, God has really just blown my mind with how much and where Kingdom Girlies is going, right? Where we are moving to, where this ministry is going. And with with that comes responsibility. And one of the things that has come with responsibility from when I was in church this Sunday to having conversations with my kids about parenting, it's so important to just, when you decide to do something, when you decide to start a ministry, a lot of people are going to be free from your testimony. So even when women ask me to be on this podcast and they say they want to come and they want to share their story, I always kind of direct them back to building their own platform, because people are going to experience you from your platform the best. And on my platform today, I want to talk to y'all about the mother-daughter relationship. I want to talk to y'all about the relationship that I have with my mom. And I want to kind of take y'all so that y'all can have a full visual from the beginning. And I'm just going to talk about exactly what God instructed me. You want to know how I've become the girly that I've become? I became this woman from the testimony, from my past experience, from situations that I endured. And much like a lot of you, I have experienced a lot of different hardships. I have went through a lot of different things. And I have these cue cards, but I really don't need them to tell my story. Um, yeah, I don't need them to tell my story. I was born in Illinois, little city like outside of Chicago. My mother was in a prison, and she was in prison for whatever she was in prison for, Tachita Women's Correctional Facility. And her being in this women's correctional facility, that's where I was born. My mother had me when she was there, and then I became, I guess essentially because I was born in a prison, I naturally was born as a ward of the state. I didn't find out that I was born a ward of the state until I was a runaway as a teenager, but we'll get to that. But I became a ward of the state, and from what I know, my grandparents tell me I went with a family member. I don't know, or a friend of the family. I don't really know from when I was just a baby, but I do know that when I was 3, my mother had went back to prison. And when she went back to prison, she went to jail for stealing. But before she went to jail, she left me at the bus stop to go and steal. And mentally and subconsciously, when you understand the psychology, that is the first space that I received abandonment. My mom leaving me on a bus stop. I talked about that before. As I started to go to therapy, we unknowingly don't understand that we deal with abandonment and we cling to certain people, or we don't want those people to leave us, because it started when our brain was initially starting to develop. All of those things are there. And even though I don't physically remember being a 3-year-old and being left sitting at the bus stop, and then my grandmother and my aunt and them having to come get me, though I don't remember that physically, it is something that actually happened, okay? And so my mom got me back. I have 4 other siblings. I have a brother that is 7 years older than me. And then the 4 of us, me, my sister, and my 2 brothers, were all stair steps. So we're right behind each other. So me being 3, I had a 2-year-old sister. My mom was either pregnant with my brother or had just had him at 1. And then I have another baby brother that's 9. They're 9 months or 10 months apart. The 2 brothers, youngest brothers. So that back and forth is, I was with my grandmother, people who could watch us. My dad sold drugs, and so because my dad sold drugs, my dad was also on the run a lot. Okay, my dad is from Ponce, Puerto Rico, and so he would go back and forth between Puerto Rico to get drugs and bring them back to Chicago, for runners to move. And so that was essentially, a lot of things were built in me. The first thing that was built in me is unknowingly the hustler, right? you don't know that you have a hustle mentality until that, but then also a rebellious spirit because you don't know that. But then also there's this thing that we build up for our parents, which some people would describe as hate, or some people would describe as a grudge. We had a lot of, you know, just instability growing up because my mom, she went back and forth to prison a lot up until she had my youngest brother. So up until I was about 4, getting ready to be 5, and then my mom, when she was in prison the last time, they say my youngest brother, he was born in prison as well, and so um I guess you know some people go to prison and they find God with my or they join the Nation of Islam or they become an Ahmadi Muslim. In our case, we became Ahmadi Muslim, and so my mom, she changed a lot of our names. So the name that we had, you know, we were born with, she switched those names around. And then after changing, you know, our names and stuff legally, some of our names were changed, some weren't legally, but we still call each other our Muslim, you know, Muslim names. After those things were changed, my mom, because she had been on drugs, once she got us, I really feel like as a mother now reality hit her. Okay. And when I say reality hit her heavy because now you have these 5 children. Okay. One who who you've been running the streets from. So her and my oldest brother's, you know, relationship was really, really, really strained. And that's not my story to tell. But when I look at me, I was witnessing that as well as like a lot of younger siblings. Now, with that being said, um, we struggled financially and severely. We weren't in a position or a space where we had a lot of money, where we had a lot of clothing, things like that. That just wasn't something that we had. And so because it was not something that we had, um, we got teased a lot in school, you know, just because like even though I'm a beautiful woman, right? And I was a beautiful little girl, kids are cruel, right? So we experienced different things. And in addition to that, my self-esteem was low. And my self-esteem was low not because the things that the kids said about me, but my self-esteem was low because my mom, my mother and my grandmother, we all lived in a house together. At this point, when I would say, you know, like by the time I'm in like first grade, I would say this is when things become very pivotal to me. So in first grade, you're like 6 or 7 years old, and in first grade is when things I would say I feel like it was hell on earth. That's when life became very memorable. We lived in this really nice house. This was the nicest house we ever lived in. You know, we had never lived in a house this nice that had an upstairs and downstairs, you know, dishwasher. It was just a really beautiful home. In this house that we were living in, my grandmother lived with us. She had a room downstairs. Me and my siblings, we had rooms upstairs. My mom had a room upstairs. We had bathrooms up there. And it just felt like, to a little kid, it felt like a mansion because it was a really big place. And my mom was able to afford it. We had a basement. We had toys and stuff in the basement. We had a backyard. So it just felt like we were just living in this dream. But if somebody walked inside the house, for me, that's when I started to experience hell on earth. Like I said, my oldest brother's story is his own to tell. So we witnessed abuse between our other siblings because he's 7 years older than me. But that's also the house that I experienced my first form of abuse in from my mom. Now we got whoopings and stuff when we were little, but this is the moment and in this part of my life where I became scared of my mommy. You know, we called our mom mommy. And so I became scared of my mommy. I don't even know, I can't tell you what I did, but I just would say I did something bad. And my mom, she would always whoop us, she would spank us, and the whoopings would be gruesome. Now, as an adult, I understand that my mom probably was going through withdrawals in this season. You know, I wasn't that much older. My mother was on really hardcore drugs. So I do know she was going through different treatment centers, that my grandmother would take her to different classes. I don't know how long she stayed in them because, again, at this point, I was like 7 years old. But I do know that she was trying to get her life together to a certain extent. And I guess a part of us getting in that house was a part of that. And so in this house, like I said, is when I started to experience hell on earth. I don't know exactly what I did to earn a whooping, but in that season, my mother this is when I first would say I got beat so badly that I could remember it. I could remember how I felt. I could remember what happened. I don't remember what I did though, but I know I didn't do enough to deserve that beating, and I got beat so bad that I really think my arm was broken. I couldn't move it. I couldn't get sent to school. And my grandmother was living with us, and I remember my grandmother telling my mom to stop. But I remember that this was a form that I started to like feel, like, why didn't my grandmother save me or protect me? Now, let me be clear. I love my grandparents to death. I love them like my mother, but this is my feelings. And this is, again, a true testimony of what I experienced. My grandmother was there while I was getting this whooping, and my mom must have stomped me or something. And it, like I said, my arm was knocked out of place. And so I couldn't go to school for a while. And I remember my grandmother just was like, well, I can pop your arm back into place. And, it was the social services not wanting to bring them back into the family, especially with what happened, not wanting to lose the kids in the system. So my grandmother, she was like nursing me back to health. Okay. She was nursing me back to health, and I was raising my arm up and down. And, that's when I started to fear my mom. I started to fear, the way she was. And I started to just to feel like she was just a mean person. From there, time and stuff continued to go on. And I remember our whoopings and stuff kind of got worse, and the whoopings got, it was for smallest things. Like, I had really long hair as a kid, and I remember I would wear 2 French braids. And being in first grade and kids are picking on you, I remember I was on a bus, and a girl that was in 5th grade, I used to think they were just like such a big kid. She was like, I could fix your hair. And so I remember she rebraided my 2 braids, and my mom waited until I got out the tub to beat me for this. And this is when I started to experience, I was scared of her, so now I'm lying, right? Because when you're fearful of something as a child, your first natural reaction is to be dishonest. So, and because I was afraid, I started to lie a lot because I was scared of her. And I didn't know that that would trickle on or become like a bigger issue until later on in life. And so I just remember, just smaller things being abused for little things like, oh, you let somebody play in your hair, you're getting beat for that. Oh, it wasn't never really about school or grades or anything like that. I wasn't a bad student. I wasn't a bad kid. It was always centered around things that were done to alter my appearance, or if my mom was just in a mood. And so time progressed. I remember us moving out of that house. And I did start to notice that financially we weren't as in a better space as we could be. I noticed my mom would always stay secluded to her room. There was like we were shoved out love wise. Like, there wasn't a lot of I love you, I hug you, kiss you, anything like that. That wasn't really displayed. And so as we started to get older, when we did experience that, we were like, oh my God, things are happy, but majority was not that. And then that's when I started to feel like life was getting worse. I felt like I used to pray for money, but it's also when suicide started to creep in. I made it to like 3rd or 4th grade at this point, and this is when things are really, really, really memorable for me, right? Where we really start to say, okay, my mom was mean about that stuff, but maybe she was mad about this. She was having some issues with my older brother. So maybe, at this point, he was no longer living with us. He was staying with his dad. So maybe, she'll be happier, or maybe she'll be better. But she really wasn't. The house that we were living in, I remember the landlord lived downstairs, and he allowed his daughter to move in. So we called that house the roach house, because she literally, if you ever lived in a place where the person had roaches, if they had them, and we lived in a duplex. So up north they have a lot of duplexes. So upstairs, downstairs, I think it was a side by side duplex. I can't remember if we were upstairs or downstairs. It was side by side. I really can't remember that part, but I just remember we shared a basement. It was mice and roach infested, and it wasn't very clean. We had gotten a cat. I guess our cat was meant to keep the mice away. We weren't very clean because we couldn't clean up. And so it was really left on my mom. And my mom, I do believe, was struggling with severe depression. So she wasn't really, doing what she needed to do in that order of that. And so I definitely think that brought on also a lot of, the bugs and stuff that came there. Was like a combined thing. My grandmother had her own place, so she no longer was living with us. So now, in the areas that she could kind of protect us, we weren't really getting protected that much. My grandmother had a car. My mom couldn't drive, so we really weren't going anywhere. We were like sitting in the house unless my grandmother came and picked us up, and we went somewhere, which was not often because it was 4 of us. And so all 4 of us couldn't always fit in a car. So in that space, a lot of times we were left at home. By ourselves, or when their errands and stuff was ran, it was when we were at school, etc. And so at this point, when we're living in this house, is when I started to notice that my mom's temperament got a lot worse. And when I would say her temperament, her tolerance for certain things, her annoyance for things, um, of course, she doesn't have the help from, my grandmother with her not living with us. I don't know what the story behind that was of her not living with us, but I just know she was no longer there. And so my mom's tolerance level was not where it needed to be. Her temperament and the way that she would handle things was not where it needed to be. And just a lot of things we started to experience. And I became suicidal in this home because I started to hate my mom. I hated my mom because we were always getting punched on and hit on and abused. She was always hollering at us. We were always in trouble. I felt like I was hungry a lot because it wasn't, for some reason, when my grandmother lived with us, there was more cooked meals, than it was when we were kind of like by ourselves. And so, I know we was getting food stamps and stuff, but it felt like we went through seasons where really didn't have a lot of food. My other siblings were younger than me, so I felt like they weren't really. I can't really describe it. It's like their complaints of being little kids was more so them wanting to go outside. But now that I'm getting older in my 8, 9, 10-year-old age, I'm hungrier, I'm growing, I'm developing. And so I'm starting to, feel different. And so my mom and my grandmother, little things that we would have in the house, I picked up a habit of stealing, particularly stealing food. I would go in, if it was candy, I would take candy. Or if my grandmother would buy all of us a snack, I would take my little brothers and I would hide it so I can have something extra for the next day. I got almost into, I guess, this phase of like harboring, because we don't know when the next thing is going to come. So you're harboring things. And then I also was in a space of being afraid. Well, harboring and stealing and taking things, it was never corrected from my mom's end of, hey, maybe I should feed my kids more, or my child is growing or she's becoming an adolescent. It was literally more so of you're bad. And so we lived on, as a matter of fact, we lived in our duplex was upstairs, because the second story, there was a window in me and my sister's room. And I remember thinking that the window was far enough down that if I jumped out the window, I just wouldn't be here anymore. And so I don't know where the thought of suicide, I mean, I know now as an adult that it's the enemy and he'll try to take you out even as a kid. But I used to get punished a lot. I would always get sent to the room and I would be in there. I was always on punishment. And I just felt like I was just bad. Mentally, I would think like I was bad, but like I would go to school and my teachers wouldn't have any issues out of me. I wouldn't cause any problems. I wasn't getting suspended. In fact, the kids that were not said that was bad, which was my sister and my brother, like those middle two, those were the ones that was getting in trouble the most, like at school with teachers and stuff. But for me, none of those things were happening. But for some reason at home, I was still considered bad. But really, I was just hungry. So I was, taking little things because I was hungry, and I would lie about taking them because I was afraid of my mom. And so the theory and the thought of wanting to jump out of this window came from my mother had literally, I must have stole something. And my mom literally whooped me so bad that I remember blacking out. And all I could remember is her kind of like standing over me, and I could hear her shouting my name. And I was completely unconscious. So like I could hear somebody shouting my name, but it was like when they say you see stars. My mom used to watch this TV show called Star Trek. And the spaceship thing, I remember it would always make me sleepy. So whenever she hit me hard enough that I was knocked out, or when she basically knocked me out, I remember laying on the ground in the room. We had like this brown dresser. My sister was standing on the other side of it, and my mom was calling me, but I guess my sister must have gotten scared enough to want to stand up to look too, to see if I was, I guess, dead or whatever. And so my mom just kept calling me my name and kept calling my name because she had literally knocked me out, and she kept yelling my name. And when she got up, when I got up, I could see my mom startled, like that she was nervous that she had harmed me, but she wasn't kind about it. She wasn't like, I went too far. She wasn't empathetic. It was nothing. She was just like, get up. And so once my mom was telling me to get up, I was like, it didn't register that I almost died until the next day. I started to realize that I seen these bruises and all of this stuff like that, and my face was messed up. And I was thinking, my mom must want me to die, because the way she said get up, she's not sounding like scared or nervous. It's just like, get up. So I got up, and in her voice, it wasn't a calm feeling. So I remember seeing the window and thinking, for me as a like 8 or 9 year old, that's a far jump from a second story of a house. But I remember saying, I'm probably not going to die. I'm probably just going to break my bones, because there was a pole right there. I didn't think that I could hit the pole. So every day I would say, I'm going to jump tomorrow. I'm going to jump tomorrow. I'm going to jump tomorrow out the window. And then I remember the one time I said I was going to jump, there was like an ambulance that I heard coming down the street. And there was like shouting that was going on outside. And my oldest brother he was always back and forth at the house. And somebody must have been threatening him, and I could hear them outside with my mom. And I remember going outside to try to like say, don't fight my brother, or don't hit my brother, or don't do anything to him. Just stop, just stop, just stop. And whoever was trying to jump on him, it was just for whatever reason. And my mom was out there also going back and forth with the people. And I remember when I came out there and I was crying, everything stopped. And I remembered that, okay, at this point, maybe there's something in me that could like break violence, break, whatever. And so it didn't stay with me that it breaking other people. It stayed with me that maybe if I'm kind enough, or I express enough that this is how I feel, that my mom will be nicer, or that violence would stop. But of course that never worked. We get past grade school. My 5th grade graduation comes, and nobody is there to show up to the graduation. And so as I'm getting ready to step into middle school, I remember I guess you could say, the feeling of not being like loved or cared for or supported had began to kick in. And I started to feel like, where would I ever experience or receive love? I remember the day of the graduation, there was this girl, oh my goodness, Janae Bracy. If you ever see this, I remember I used to think she was so pretty, Janae Bracy, and they had a girl, Audriana Roberson. I remember both of them. I was in elementary school with them, 5th grade, and I remember they were really close friends. And I remember how pretty they looked, and their parents being there, and I remember them having gifts. And I remember saying to myself, well, I wish I had a gifts, and I wish I had a mama like them, and I wish I had a, life like them, and I wish I had that. I remember Janae had this pretty outfit that had butterflies on it, and I remember I had on some jeans and an old old camp t-shirt that I had put on, and my hair was in whatever ponytails, and I just like, I really looked a mess, and for whatever reason, my grandmother wasn't able to come. I'm assuming because she had whatever had going on. But I remember we had to be picked up from school. So I remember them picking me up. And I remember getting in the car thinking we were supposed to go out of town this time. I think we were going I can't remember exactly where we were going. I don't know if it was to St. Louis or something, but I remember we were going somewhere out of town. And no, we were going to Washington, D.C. actually. And I remember because my family is Muslim. Like I told you, my mom was Muslim at this point, and my grandmother had also become Muslim with my mom while she was in prison. And so they have this thing called Jalsa. And Jalsa is like a convention, kind of like a revival or something like that for Muslims. And we went to Jalsa, and it was in Washington, D.C. I remember we flew there or drove there. I think we drove there. I can't remember if we flew or drove, but I just remember, I think we drove, because I remember me and my sister, we stayed with my grandmother's friend after that for this convention. And I think my mother went back or whatever the situation was. But I remember it was a long drive to get there. It took us like, I think, a day or two to get to Washington, D.C. We were in Milwaukee at this time. And so I just remember experiencing like the long drive, but I kept thinking, well, if they could have picked me up from school, why couldn't they come to the thing? And I remember my grandmother used to love going to the thrift store. So I was thinking, why couldn't they buy me at least a nice outfit from the thrift store? So as a kid, I'm like 11 in 5th grade. I'm starting to really process my thoughts and the questioning of why couldn't I get this or why couldn't I get that? But you can never say it out loud, and I could never show it in my emotion. So it's like the pretending to smile. And then also there was never any explanation. Now, as a mother now, I understand we want explanation of why someone wasn't there. But at the time, there was not any explanation. And so as we get past 5th grade, we go through there, I begin to get in middle school. And my self-esteem, I did not know how low my self-esteem was until I got around girls with really high self-esteem. These girls were bold. They were vibrant. They were outgoing. And I ended up in if you know Marva Collins, Westside Preparatory in Chicago, they have Milwaukee College Prep in Marva Collins in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There's these sister schools. We're going to Marva Collins School, and I'm seeing these girls who have been in this private school, in this private sector, that has built up their self-esteem, that has built up their self-worth. And here I am coming from a situation where I feel I have none of that, right? I feel none of that is in existence for me. And because I feel like none of that is in existence for me, I don't even know where I fit in this situation with these girls. So I'm just instantly saying they're popular, not understanding that these women do have high self-esteem because it's been built and developed in them, but also because a lot of them are receiving love. And us kids who are not popular or not, favored or not in the in crowd, oftentimes when you're a child and you're not in that, it's simply because your self-esteem is not where it needs to be. Yes, some kids are shy. Yes, some kids are, they're to themselves, or we use the term introverted. But most of the time when kids become that way, it's because it starts with a self-esteem issue when you're that young. And I didn't realize how bad my self-esteem was until I got around girls who were confident and they believed in themselves. My menstrual cycle began to start, and I wasn't really taught properly how to take care of myself or to change my pad often. It was like it's on, but my mom wasn't really teaching me how to take care of myself properly during that time. It's like, here's the pad, you put it on. Here you take yourself a shower, a bath. But it was like the theory of you make sure you need to take a shower in the morning. And at night, it was like everything was like, get ready to go to school. It wasn't that extra care that you should put into hygiene. It wasn't like we were taught to be dirty, but the ways that I should have really been taught to care for myself, I was not taught like that. So now I'm at school and kids are picking on me because of body odor. And, we're getting one uniform to start the school year with. And, now I'm sweating. I'm starting to develop hormones. So I'm having to wear this white uniform shirt, and it has the white uniform shirt has like a yellow line underneath it because I'm sweating and I'm musty at school. And, I'm not understanding like, hey, I need a little bit more attention, not just Teen Spirit deodorant, but you probably need to shower in the morning and in the evening time. You need to take care of yourself. Hey, you might need feminine wipes. Hey, you need powder, just those little things. Some of it was because we couldn't afford it. Some of it because it was that extra care wasn't put out of it. And a lot of it was because my mother was very depressed and she wasn't really focused on the care and the concern of her children at this point in time, and at those adolescent years when we really needed it. It wasn't just me that was experiencing it. My brothers weren't getting haircuts. Me and my sister weren't really getting our hair done. And there was a lot of abilities that my mom had to do. My mom knew how to press and curl hair. My mom knew how to put things together. She knew how to fix stuff together, but she didn't do it. And that's when I started to hate her. Because now I'm in middle school and I'm getting picked on. I'm not wearing my hair a specific way. Things are not like this, and I can't do it. And so then we fast forward to my 6th grade year. And my 6th grade year was a really hard year for me because I was the last to get everything. The school, we had to wear these blazers. And I remember there's this girl named Kelly Walton that was in my class, and her mother, Miss Walton, was a secretary. And when her mom was a secretary at the school, they ended up buying me a blazer and sewing the patch on it because I was still wearing a cardigan sweater when all of the 6th graders were supposed to have on blazers. And so the school bought me one. And I remember when I came in the classroom, this boy bust out laughing and he was like, "About time, musty girl." And like, as an adult, I'm like, it's funny as an adult. It's funny as an adult, but man, when I tell you that was like opened up the door for like this one thing where I left out of the office so happy to have a blazer to go on into class, and all my happiness is crushed. And all of those things were consistently weakening my self-esteem. I began to get like really heavy cycles, and I'm kids are picking on me because I have body odor, and they're not understanding the stuff that I'm experiencing at home, that I'm not really being showed, how to do specific things. And some of the stuff is provided, but I'm not being taught to how to be a woman, taught how to be a young lady. And so this resentment from my mom, of course, it continues to build. And so as we fast forward that, in my 6th grade year, my mom had did this press and curl on. I will never forget this. So the show Moesha, UPN was out, and there's these Sunday shows, right? Or whatever day the shows came on. I think it was Sundays. But my mom had press and curled me and my sister's hair. And our hair was natural. I didn't have a perm. I don't think my sister was getting relaxers either. And we never used to get our hair pressed and curled. So I was so excited to wear my hair down at school the next day. Well, my mom pressed and curls our hair, and then she has this pink lotion. And she says, oil y'all scalp with the pink lotion. And I didn't want to oil my scalp with the pink lotion because I knew if I oiled my scalp with the pink lotion, that it was going to make my hair curly. Like it was going to basically wave the press and curl back up, oiling it up with this moisturizer. So I did not oil my scalp with this pink lotion. So my mom asked me, did I oil my scalp with the pink lotion? And she knew my hair texture. My daddy's Puerto Rican. My family's all mixed up. My grandfather's Ghanaian, my grandmother's Native American. So like with all of these mixed up, you know, all of these mixed up cultures, I guess you could say, my mom basically understood the hair textures. Let me put it that way. And so she knew that if I put the pink lotion in my hair was going to be curly, but I didn't. And when she asked me if I did, I told her I did, but I did not. And she ended up to give me the consequence. Number one, I got a whooping. And then after getting a whooping, she said, made me put my hair, she made me oil my hair with pink lotion. And then she made me put my hair in 3 ponytails. Now here I am, a 12-year-old girl in middle school. All of these girls are wearing roller wraps or pressing curls or their hair down, or if you remember twisties, like at the top, they're wearing like twisties at the top with their hair down in a bag with these like butterfly clips. They have their hair done in these specific styles. And I'm walking into the classroom, and the day that she made me do it, we're late to school. Because by the way, we're having to walk at least 5 or 6 miles to school every day. Okay. We literally got an award for walking to school every day. Up north, it's cold, snowstorms, everything, rain, sleet, or snow. We had to walk to school. We had to get up out the house. And so we're walking to school every single day. So I'm sweaty. We're late to school. And when I get ready to go to the class, to school, I had to put my hair in these 3 ponytails. And my siblings thought it was funny. I remember them calling me like a clown. And, you know, it was like 2 in the front and 1 in the back. And I'm having to wear these 3 ponytails in middle school, embarrassed. So I ended up taking the curls down. My idea was to unravel the ponytails, and maybe that would make it look better. And my siblings are chasing me into the school because they want me to wear my hair in these ponytails. And it kind of like, as a kid, you build resentment for them because you're thinking like, well, do you see how mean our mom is being to me? Like how she's singing me loud. Why would y'all want me to have to be embarrassed too, you know? And you just start to feel like, does anybody really like have my back or love me and care for me? And my daddy is in and out of jail from selling drugs. So like, where are you to protect me? You know, but this ain't even a story about him. That's a story for another day. But where are you to protect me in all of this? And my mom is just, I didn't got a whooping, and now I got to go to school and I got to deal with embarrassment. So this is when like embarrassment and shame is creeping in. And I had to wear my hair like that for the rest of the school year, y'all. This happened in like the fall, going into the winters, like the fall. So we're at the mid of like point of the school year, and I'm 12 years old having to wear my hair in these 3 ponytails. And I'm just like, is this woman really hates me? You know, she doesn't like me. I had to wear it for the whole school year up until the summer. I remember coming for my whole 6th grade year, and the hate that I had for my mother, it just kept building, and it kept building, because now it's like it's on top of each other. And then, you know, as I get to 7th grade year, my hate is even more built. And my hate is even more built is because like the abuse is thickening. I remember my mom used to love going on these walks around the tracks at the high school. She was always on this journey to lose weight. And we would find sticks and stuff, walking sticks. And I remember getting a stick, and I painted it for her, made it all pretty. And that became the thing that she was abusing us with. And when I say a stick, y'all, I want y'all to think, if you've ever seen like a bedpost, or like the wooden bedpost, maybe not that wide, but a little bit smaller than that. That was like our belt. So we were getting beat with this stick consistently, and getting beat with this stick consistently as a form of abuse. By 7th grade, the abuse had gotten 10 times worse. The school started seeing bruises on me and my siblings' arms. So like social services began to ask a lot of questions. You know, they're kind of getting back and forth. You know, in certain Black households, they say you don't tell your business. So we're not telling them that our mom is abusing us. We're kind of like covering it up. And then my mom's violence and hatred towards me got deeper. She would like spit on us, and or me, you know, she would spit on me. She would hit us. I have a big gash in the top of my head where no hair grows because I was getting hit on top of my head with a stick. And then one day, my hair was all over my head. She had pressed our hair out. I don't even know what I did, but I remember my mom had me pinned up against the wall and she grabbed my hair and she was like, I'm about to cut your hair. And my mother literally cut all of my hair off. And if you were in middle school with me and you see me in second grade, you know I went from having very long hair to coming to school the next day, all my hair was chopped off. I literally looked like a Barbie doll that we used to take the scissors to. And I remember my teacher, I'll never forget, Miss Blair and Miss Malone. I didn't even know what to tell them. I didn't even know what to say. I remember trying to slick my hair in a ponytail and pull it back. And uh, I just remember when I was trying to slick my hair to pull it back or try to fix it, they were like looking at my head all chopped up. And they knew that it was something that I wasn't saying. But they just kept saying, what happened to your head? And I literally remember this day in class, like I didn't answer, I act like I didn't hear them. And I remember this day in class, us having like hot glue guns. We were doing a project. And I remember thinking of how sticky it was. And I kept saying, oh, I got hot glue all over my head. And I had to get it all cut out because I knew that if I told them what happened, then they would come and get my mom. And I still, as a child, was in a place of protecting my mom, protecting my siblings. I also was very afraid of her. And I did not want to say what happened because I was just like, if I tell them what went on and what happened, then this is just going to be bad. How is it going to go? So I just didn't say nothing. I just said I had hot glue in my hair. And that was the first time, my mom had cut my hair off. My hair began to grow back, and as it began to grow back and stuff, from 7th grade, I think 8th grade, 9th grade, it all grew back. As my hair all started to grow back, my mom, I don't know what happened my 9th grade year, but that became my corporal punishment of my mom cutting my hair off and really messing with my appearance, which essentially messed with my self-esteem. And so it was either the end of my 8th grade year or going into my 9th grade year. I just remember my hair had grew back. And then I think it was the end of my 8th grade year. Going to my 9th grade year, my mom had, it was my 9th grade year. My mother had chopped my hair off again. At this point, I started to get very promiscuous, really putting myself into boys because now I'm in high school and, I wasn't experiencing all of this, attention or anything like that. And when I was in 8th grade, my mom had moved our schools. And so I wasn't experiencing all of this attention or I guess you could say love or anything like that. And so when I got to 8th grade, going into 9th grade, all of these boys, like me and my sister was the new girls at the school. So all of the boys, because we were at a small school, almost like an alternative school, but it was a Muslim school. All of these boys were liking us. They thought we were pretty, we were the new girls. And so because of that, and because all of these people were in a space where they were liking us, for me, I was like, oh my God, I've never experienced this type of attention before. I've never experienced this type of, people liking me. When I was in middle school, everybody was picking on me and they was talking about me. And because I was in a classroom where there were small girls, I will never forget, shout out to Shay. Me and Shay are still cool to this day. No matter how far we are, we know what it is. But I remember Shayna telling me how to keep myself clean on my cycle. I remember one time she smelled me and she literally pulled me to the side and told me. And that's when I found out or experienced a good friend. And she didn't let people pick at me. She didn't let people talk to me. She just said, hey, you got to change the pad. She was like, it's not that you're not taking a bath. You got to change the pad. So she taught me what I was supposed to do for that. And I remember she would give me body spray and, she knew how to her family, they had a little money. And so she would make sure I had a little cardigan to go over my uniform and different things like that. And so that friendship, people started to really, understand and see okay, this is a sweet person. And then she left the school. And so her and I were I guess these pretty girls at the school. Right. And, a lot of the boys started to like me. And then I was still experiencing and going through things at home. And as I experienced and went through those things at home and my mom chopped my hair off, I started to experience bullying in high school. And experiencing this bullying in high school as well as experiencing abuse at home, you don't know a balance. And so when I tell you my resentment increased, I began to learn myself, understand who I was, identify who I was, and I'm 14 years old. And I'm like, I hate school. I hate my life. I hate myself. I hate my mom. I hate my dad. I hate my grandparents. This is the way I was truly feeling because nobody was protecting me in no area. Nobody understood how I was feeling. We didn't have any money. They didn't understand how it felt to go home. And, I don't even know what my mom was doing with the food stamps, but most of our meals was beans cooked in this crock pot with rice and cornbread. Nobody understood those, I guess, feelings or emotions that I was experiencing. And because they didn't understand the feelings and emotions that I was experiencing, I wasn't getting the protection that I needed. So I began to hate myself. But the person that I hated the most in this world was literally my mother. I wasn't exposed to Christ. I didn't understand what forgiveness was. And if somebody had told me to forgive and love your mother, which people did, I still didn't want to do it. I still didn't want to do it, and I refused to do it. Um, I get through high school, kids are bullying me. Some of the girls are jealous of me. And so I'm literally a virgin and they're accusing me of having sex with this person and that person just because those people are attracted to me. And so I'm experiencing this my freshman year in high school being picked on. Um, I feel like we had um, a break in so many things because as I went into going into my freshman year, well, eighth grade year, going into my freshman year, my mother started dating someone. And the person that she started dating, we like to say at the end of eighth grade year, going into my ninth grade year, was any of my siblings, anybody would say, it just got bad. It got bad. My mom started dating this person and she was back smoking weed a lot. We was smelling in the house amongst doing other drugs. Now as an adult, I understand that that's what she was doing. We started experiencing abuse, but not just by my mom, but also by her boyfriend. And my mom is supposed to be a person supposed to protect us, but the protecting never happened. In fact, it got worse. I started to go to public school, and my mom's boyfriend started to um, abuse us, where the sexual abuse for me was in a different way. He started off where he would just put like pornographic pictures like out of magazines in our underwear buckets and clothes and stuff. He would go through that stuff and leave them in there. He would throw them under the bathroom door just so we could see the images. I remember one time he put condoms on me and my sister's bed. Like he would just do these weird things. And my mom was not right because she knew that this man that she had decided, she knew when she let him come to be with us, that she knew that this man had been in prison and had been to jail for raping his niece. She knew that he had been in jail for that. She knew that he also had, when she met him, there was a girl that was a young girl that used to go to his house all the time. She always used to go there. She always used to stop by there. And I remember, I would never forget, she was a little brown skin, heavy set girl. And my mom would be like, oh, like she the neighborhood friend. She always stopped by there. It's like my mother was like naive to it, or she knew, but just really didn't care because she just wanted to experience love because she wasn't a fool. And so that girl used to go over there. And my mom kept him around us. She kept him in a space where it was around us, where we did not experience the right things. And those forms of molestation increased. It increased to so many things. But where my disgust for my mom of never wanting to speak to her, having an estranged relationship, wanting to be combative with her, wanting to tell her how I felt, was when I got to this moment where we started to experience that. My sophomore and my junior year, where we started to experience the abuse, not just from my mom, but from him. And so I'm getting through high school, and things are not right. Everything that you could imagine, it just is continuing on. I get ready to get into my senior year of high school, and it was the top of the school year. I will never forget. Now, at this point, abuse was really bad. I had got my first job at the end of my school year, junior year at Popeyes, like mid to end of the year. I remember I was 16. I was working at Popeyes, and I would get a check, and I would have to go cash it at the check cashing place and give it to my mom. I know my mom is actively using drugs. We don't have a lot of food in the house. My grandmother would bring stuff over there, and my mom's boyfriend would eat the food up and stuff while we were at school. I don't know what was happening really with the food stamps. I mean, maybe she was selling them. I really don't even have an answer for that. But I just know that the way we were supposed to be treated and handled, we weren't. And I know my mom knew that I disliked her. Like, I actively know. I remember the abuse and stuff would be so bad. She would like put me at the house. I remember she would call the Job Corp and tell them that I gotta come there and I'm going. And, it was just, I didn't understand it. But then I started to understand that my mom kind of was jealous of me. And if you've experienced a relationship with a mother that has been jealous of you, you know the actions that I'm talking about. You know the things you're feeling, you know the stuff. And if you are a mom that's watching this, deal with the root of whatever is going on with you, because your daughter is going to carry that forever. And they don't really deserve to have to experience or feel that. Because when you experience jealousy from a mother, when you experience, that jealousy, that your mom doesn't know how to act on that. And so they put their hands on you, they call you out your name, they make you feel low, they make you feel like you fast, they make you feel like you just doing this and you doing that, when really you're not doing none of those things. I was a virgin. I wasn't doing any of those things. And the only person that was abusing me was the person that she was sleeping next to at night. Everything else that was going on in her house, things that was going on with my siblings, it was always looked at me because I was light skinned, because I was pretty, because was shapely, or my butt and stuff started to get big. A lot of people were attracted to me, because of those things. And because maybe my sister was brown skinned, or because of that, I always seemed like I got the harder end of things. It always seemed like it was just like this, anger or this like resentment or this meanness towards me because I look different than her, because I look different than them. And it was always, you think you all that. And, and I was just like, I don't even think I'm anything. You keep saying I think I'm all that, but I really don't think I'm anything because you don't make me feel like anything. So how am I going to think that I'm something when you don't make me feel like that? And the only time that I ever feel love is when a boy at the school tell me that they like me, or when I'm walking down the street and a grown man is trying to holler at me as a teenager, or when, I'm experiencing a teacher maybe telling me I look pretty. But how am I quite literally, as your daughter, going to think I'm all that when you make me feel like I'm nothing? How am I going to think that? And so I get through that moment. I guess, I get through that phase of being going into my senior year. And as I'm, I guess, stepping into this senior year in high school, and I'm in here, I decided to finally get the courage to tell my mom that her boyfriend was abusing me, that he was, sexually abusing me. Like, I finally get the courage to tell her that he was abusing me. And when I finally get the courage to tell my mom that he was abusing me, I remember we were sitting on the couch and I was thinking about this for days because I was tired of being abused. I was tired of experiencing that. My mother I remember, took a trip to Mississippi to go see my aunt, and she left me at home with my brothers, with him, and she took my sister. And I just remember feeling like, how she, care about my sister more than she care about me? How she give her love more than she give them me? And she left me here with somebody that's abusing me. She left me here with somebody that's not treating me right. Like, how she do that? And I say that during that trip that my mom left to Mississippi was the first time that I really prayed to God. And when you grow up in a situation, in a household where you know that God exists, but God is not exuded in the household. God is love. And God is not expressed or shown in the household when there is no love there. Because where there is love, there is God. And I'm talking about pure love. And I remember knowing that my mom was leaving to go on this trip. I remember her and my sister prepping for this. And I just remember praying to God, like, if you do exist, God, I never felt you protect me before. If you exist, I never felt your comfort before. If you exist, you haven't protected me from this abuse that I've experienced. You haven't protected me from this heartache. You haven't protected me from having low self-esteem. You haven't protected me from being bullied at school. But if you do exist, God, I just want you to protect me while my mom is gone. Because while she's gone, all of this stuff is going to happen to me. And I really don't want it to happen to me. I really don't want it to be worse. So if you do exist, Could you please show me that you do? And her boyfriend said things, a lot of weird stuff that weekend, but he never touched me. Um, and that's when I started to say that it must be something bigger, that it must be something greater than me. And even though it's not taught where I'm at, and even though my mom and me don't have a good relationship, even though I hate her, I know that God has to exist in spite of what I'm experiencing because he protected me right here. And all we need sometimes is that one thing from God. All we need sometimes is that one feeling or that one thing for him to show us that he's actually real. And that's all I needed in that moment was that one thing from God to show me that he was real. That one moment, that one time to show me that he was a God that truly was in existence. And I realized in that season that even though it was difficult as a teenager, if I really come to God like sincerely and seek him for myself, even though I haven't been taught to do this, that he will show up because he showed up for me then. Um, they returned, and when they returned, this is when I was like, okay, nothing happened, but I'm going to work up the courage to tell my mom that this is what's been happening, because maybe if I tell her, since God has protected me, maybe it won't happen anymore. So I worked up the courage to tell her what was going on. And when I worked up the courage to tell her what was going on, my mom's response to it, she was like scatterbrained. She was furious or whatever. And then I remember, I think I had to go to work or something in that nature. I can't remember what it was, but I think I was set to go to work that day. And I did. I left and I walked to work to Popeyes. And while I was going, my mother must have been looking for evidence. I told her about all of the stuff, like the magazines, everything that I was putting the pictures. I would throw them away or put them in events. And so she was just looking for some form of evidence. Because remember when I was a kid, I was stealing candy because I was hungry. Remember when I was a kid, I was lying about stealing stuff because I was scared of my mom. And my mom now has given me a label of a liar in my house. Like, my siblings don't have this label, though whatever they're doing, they're doing it again. That's their story to tell. But this is the label that's put on me because I used to steal candy when I was a kid and would steal food and take things like that because I was hungry. And I got the label of being a liar because after I would steal, I would lie because I was scared. So none of those things were looked at, only that you lied. Okay? And so we look past that, and my mom's instant thought is that I must be lying, that I have to be lying because she can't find any evidence. So I remember getting home from work, and I remember going to bed, and he must have come back. And he was sitting in the living room on a chair. I had took my bath, and everybody was getting their baths. Now, the house that we lived in, the water drained in the tub very, 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 very slow. And my mom, you could tell that she felt like she was about to lose everything in front of her. And she knew that I hated her. And she knew that I did not like her. And she also knew that I did not like him. And she never really asked us, why do we dislike him? She never asked us what was happening. She just knew we hated him. And she came up with her own analysis and her own synopsis of why, versus just trying to find out why my children feel this way about not just me, but about this person. And so we get past my mom, she's searching this day, and I get home from work, and my mom calls me downstairs. Now, I'm in bed, and I'm a child. I have this big white t-shirt on and some tights or something like that, and I'm not sleeping in, or basketball shorts, so I don't have a bra on. And she calls me downstairs and like, come down. I'm trying to get myself together, but I didn't have enough time because she calls me down. So I come downstairs, and as I go downstairs, she's like asking me this, and I'm sitting in front of him, and this man is sitting there with glasses on. Now, I had never been like, this person violated us and, abused me, but I had never been in a position where I was standing right there willingly, like exposed like this, right? And so I'm sitting down there, and I'm kind of like standing like this because I know that I don't have anything on, and I'm just like scared out of my mind. My mom is shouting, and she's like, you tell him what you said to me. And I'm telling him what he did, and I'm telling him, you did do this stuff, and he's sitting there with these glasses on, and he's not saying a word. He's not opening up his mouth and saying a word. And my mom is shouting at me, and next thing you know, she starts beating on me, and she beats me from like the living room area that we're in all the way to the bathroom. And as we get to the bathroom, one of my brothers had just finished taking a bath, and there's like a plunger, and she's like, show me where you put the picture when he threw it in the bathroom. And I'm showing her like the vent that I threw it there. And so when I'm showing her this stuff, she's basically now calling me fast, and she's starting to beat me, talking about some, you must be having sex with somebody and you're just trying to hide that you're doing this. And she starts beating me with the plunger that's in the bathroom. And as she's hitting me with this plunger, next thing you know, my mom takes the meat from the tub of water and pushes all of my face and meat inside this whole tub of water, like push down, trying to drown me in this water. And as we come out, I'll come out and, I'll get ready to go upstairs, and she calls me back to the living room, and now my clothes are soaking wet, my breasts and stuff are exposed, and I'm in this living room, and this person is sitting there not saying nothing, not owning up to it. And my mom is just like frustrated. She was like, y'all just trying to break up, because when I was a kid, I would say stuff that wasn't true. And she's thinking that I'm trying to break up something, when in fact is she doesn't want to accept the reality of what's happening. And so at that point, I remember the next day of all of those things, my mom just like not doing what she needed to do for me. And I remember saying, you know what? I'm just so tired of this. And I was, at the time, I was dating a guy. I had fallen into the whole, the girl of, I was attracted to, younger dudes that sold drugs. I mean, I guess it was just based on what that was. And so the boyfriend that I had, I remember he had a really nice truck. He used to buy me a lot of things that I would have to hide, because he would meet me like when we were getting ready to go to school. Like when we were like up in the neighborhood, he would kind of like meet me where I was at, and he would like take me and my siblings to school. So I would leave like shoes and stuff in the car. And I remember telling him that day that I didn't want to go back home. I ended up working up the courage to tell him what happened. And when I worked up the courage to tell him exactly what happened, I remember he was like, oh yeah, you're not going back there. You're not going back over there. He was like, you coming to stay at my house. You coming to stay at my apartment. And so I left school that day, and I didn't return home. And I didn't return home for a couple of days, but the next day, I was like 2 days that I didn't return home. But then he was like, telling me like, Shy, you got to go to school. He was like, because, they gonna be putting out truancy. He was like, you want to get your diploma. He was like, you want to get your degree. You got dreams. Because he knew that there were a lot of things that I wanted to do. I always wanted to do something. Like at the time, I used to want to open a salon up. And he was telling me like, oh, you just got to make it till you 18 to get in cosmetology school. That was something that I wanted to do. And I don't own a salon now, if you're watching this for the first time, but I am an entrepreneur. But I always wanted to open up a salon. And he was like, you got to go to high school. You got to get back in school. So I remember going to school, and my mom came to the school to look for me, and she seen me in there. And when she came into the school to look for me, I just remember I ended up walking past through the hallway. I thought I made it through the whole day, and I thought that I could just go to school but not return home. That was my whole philosophy, that I'm going to go to school every day, but when I leave school, I'm not going to go home. Instead, I'm just going to go back to the apartment. And so this particular day, I'm walking through the hallways, and she's up there looking for me. And my plan was, if she find me, or if she comes to the school looking for me, I'm going to run. Like, I'm not going to stay here. I get there, and my mom literally was walking through the hallway, and she seen me, and this lady dragged me out to school by my hair for not coming back. The way she pitched it to the security guard was that I ran away from home. The security guard basically let her drag me out to school. And this is what I mean. If y'all are teachers and y'all work in school, make sure y'all have conversations with kids. When y'all see kids that are promiscuous, when y'all see girls that are acting a specific way, when y'all see certain things happening, try to see which ways you can advocate and find out what you can do. I feel like they don't make educators the way they used to make them anymore, because there's nobody really advocating for people in the way that they should. But long story short, she dragged me out of that school. And as my mom drags me out of the school, I remember she taking me home, locking me in the basement. And growing up, my mom would lock us in the basement often. I remember me and my siblings one time having to put fish in the dryer because we was down there hungry. She was the queen of locking us in the cold basement. And this time she locked me in the basement, and she came down there. She beat me. She cut all my hair off again. And I just was like, I'm going to just put like, the little pack hair in there, kind of like slick my hair back as long as it could fit in the ponytail. I put jam and stuff all on it. And I put my hair in like a little ponytail to the back. And I tried to make it work. But after like 3 days, I ended up leaving home again. And at that point, I never returned. I never returned home. I was just my hate and disgust for that woman and the way that I felt, it just wasn't there. I did not love her anymore. I did not want to be around her. Didn't feel protected by her. And so I left again, and I did not have any plan to return back. When I left again, I was gone for a long time. I remember staying at one of my like friend's house, like a classmate. I just remember staying there, and I remember when I was there for a while, and then I was at um back and forth, and then I was like, I ended up getting sent back home, and then I went to my grandmother's house, and it just was like I was just back and forth from this home to not home, home to not home, and eventually I just never returned back. I remember everybody was looking for me, my grandmother, all of them, um, and I just didn't go back. I remember enrolling myself in a new high school, my senior year. Shout out to Bayview High School. I remember enrolling myself into high school my senior year. And once I enrolled myself into high school, I remember saying, my mom don't know where I'm at. I can't, she not going to find out anything, XYZ. And that was that. I remember staying with my boyfriend my senior year, getting through high school, getting myself to, to this point where I'm graduating. And it was a struggle, getting from my grandmother, then with my kids' dad's kind of with him, and, living from this place to that place, no stability. And I think the biggest part of hating my mom was that I didn't have that stability. I wouldn't return home. She knew I didn't like me. Like her when they got ready to move to Louisville, because my mom, she decided to, I guess, get better. I ended up not returning back to the school. I ended up, going, and I was at this point staying with my godmother. She made sure that I got through the rest of, school for my senior year. She made sure that I did what I needed to do, made sure I got into these different programs and stuff so that I could, finish and get into college. And during this process, I remember I was in a dormant season, and I remember writing a letter to my mother. And when I wrote it, she decided not to read it and send it back. But that was a moment where she could accept it, but she kind of knew. I become this young adult now, and then I ended up deciding that even though I hadn't felt her love, I still chased after her love. And in chasing after her love, I remember going to Louisville. I got myself enrolled in the University of Louisville. I ended up finding out I was pregnant with my son. I had him. I ended up, moving to Louisiana and finishing and getting my degree online from University of Louisville, and just all of the stuff that I was experiencing as I was getting through there. I felt like my life was in turmoil, specifically because of the situation and way I was raised and the stuff that I dealt with my mom. And my mom was putting it off on, oh, you weren't a good kid. Oh, you didn't want to listen. But I was never in trouble from school. They can't say how, y'all, maybe 2 to 3 incidents of me being suspended or experiencing things. A lot of this stuff came from the way that we were raised, the way that things were happening. And so you fast forward and I get into my younger adult life, and I'm in my 20s. In my early 20s, and my mom's boyfriend dies. The person in 2013 that caused all this turmoil, she dies. At this point, I'm going through a divorce, and I'm really messed up mentally. I'm going through it. I remember calling my mom saying, I just want to talk to you. And she was like, I ain't never been married. Call your grandmother. And it was just always this strained relationship of her not really liking me and me not liking her. Her, making up things and telling my siblings that I'm doing pornography, and it's just all of these things. And really all I was ever doing was trying to grow closer to Christ and trying to get myself in a better space. And so we fast forward, I get to my 20s, and this man passes away. And then, I tried to rebuild with my mom because I felt sorry for her. I felt sorry that she lost someone. I felt sorry that she didn't have what she needed. I was in a transition season in New Orleans of trying to get myself together and get my life right. And my mom is now in a space in 2014 where she needs me and she needs help. She doesn't have a place to go. And I decided to forgive my mom. At this point, I got saved. I'm walking with Christ, but I'm not understanding the power in forgiveness. I'm not understanding that some of my blessings are being held up because I'm not forgiving my mother. But I felt like I could not forgive my mother until I got the apology that I needed from her, until I got the acknowledgement that I needed from her. And the reality is that that lady was not giving me that. And I could beg and beg and beg for it, but she wasn't giving it to me. And there's somebody that's watching this right now that's waiting for your mom to give you something that you're never going to get. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get the apology you want. You're not going to get the I'm sorry. You're not going to get the acknowledgement. You're not going to get the I forgive you. You're not going to get the I love you. You're not going to get the accountability that you're looking for. And for some of you that know that you need to give that to your daughters right now, This is not by coincidence that you're seeing it, but this is a sign for redemption. Because if I could have gotten that, maybe I would have been able to move forward easier. Maybe I would have been able to forgive easier. Maybe the relationship would have been easier. But instead, my mother died. My mom came to live with me. She slightly acknowledged it. Her thing was, I knew that this was going to come up because I brought it back up, and I remember her locking herself in my bathroom. And then after I brought it up, she went back to mistreating me. And her theory in her mind was that I moved her to New Orleans from Louisville to mistreat her. But you asked to come here. I didn't ask you to come here. And she continued on. There was like fighting. There was this. There was that. It was just so much problems and so much turmoil. And my mom was really unhappy with her life. She was unhappy that she lost the person that she was with. She was unhappy that she didn't have a relationship with her grandchildren because now she had a lot of them. She was unhappy that she did not have a relationship with all 5 of her children. She was unhappy that she had to take accountability for her actions, and she refused to do so. And so we get fast forward this, and in 2016, there was no redemption. I wasn't talking to my mom, and I spent so much time in 2015 and 2016 trying to help her. I would bring groceries to her house. I knew my mom was back on drugs from the area that we was in to just everything. I would bring food to the house. I would try to go places with her. I would bring my kids around her. I wanted them to have a relationship with their Gigi because I didn't have that. My mom didn't have a good relationship with any of her grandchildren. And I felt like, maybe she could have it with my kids. My son was her first grandson. And so I was like, well, maybe she could have that with them. And I spent so much time in 2015 and 2016 trying to chase after her love that I was never going to get. At that point, I didn't even care about the apology anymore. I didn't care about the acknowledgement. I just wanted to have a good relationship with her because now I'm a mother with a daughter and a son. And I really would love to know how to be a good mom. But I never had a good mother to teach me how to be a good mom. And because I never had a good mother how to teach me how to be a good mom, I'm just hoping that maybe if I could restore the relationship with her, that maybe, just maybe, I could be a better mother to my children. And so I'm in a position where I'm trying to figure this out, but I just don't know how to figure it out. And in the process of trying to figure it out, my mother gets sick. She gets diagnosed with hepatitis C, but she doesn't tell us. I believe she told my sister, but she doesn't tell us. And as she gets into her space of diagnose, I remember we're not talking at all. And in April of 2016, my sister my phone was off. I was just going through a hard season, a very hard season. I was in and out of, space with jobs and working in a bank, not having enough money. I'm trying to get my life together. These kids are getting older. Things are getting more expensive. I'm trying to keep a car. The car always seems like it got problems. Every time I get ahead, it seems like I get pushed back behind. And all of this, I'm asking God, where the hell are you? Where are you? Why have you allowed my life to be so hard? Why have you allowed things to be the way that they are? Why have you allowed these circumstances to happen? Why have you not given me the proper love and the proper parenting that I needed? And now I'm in this position where I don't know how to be a mama. I don't know how to be a girlfriend. I don't know how to experience love. I don't know, God. Where are you? Where are you? Why have you abandoned me? Why have you allowed the people that were supposed to love me to abandon me? And why have you abandoned me? In all of this, where are you? And I get to this process where I'm trying to figure out where's God in all of this. And my sister, I remember my phone was off and I had to wait until payday to pay my phone bill because I was just in a bad financial space. And my sister wrote on a Facebook wall, me and to all my siblings who call us her ASAP. It's about mom. It's an emergency. And my sister and my mom were living together with my sister's daughter's dad. And my mom had got admitted to the hospital. The first day she went, I think my sister said my mom thought she was having a stroke or something was going on because her head felt really tight and she felt swollen. But that was the start of my mother's ending. That was the start of my mom's last days. It was the first day of it. She went there. She was on one floor, and then they admitted her to the hospital. That's when my sister put everything there to contact us. And the next day I came when I seen it. I rushed there, and when my mom was in the hospital, she was put on a floor. And the floor that my mom was put on was the floor that my dad had just passed away on 4 months before that. So I was already grieving. I was already grieving. I had just lost my dad on that same floor. And in my head, I knew. I didn't know, but I knew. Like, I didn't know when, I didn't know the time. I just knew that my mother was about to pass. And my mom, I sat there with her. My sister had to leave to go she had a daughter, her baby at this time. And so she had to leave. And I remember sitting there with my mom, and they were telling her that if she talks, because her breathing was going out, that they had to put her on like a machine to help her breathe, and that she couldn't talk. So they put this like tube in her. They got everything together. They got her to breathe in. And she was trying to, I seen my mom in that moment trying to still be the strong person. And we started to write notes back and forth. And my mom literally wrote on the paper, she said, "I never thought that you would be here." And in that very moment, everything that my mother had allowed to happen to me, every moment of unforgiveness that I had for her, in an instant, I felt God's love and presence. That this is what God's true love is about, that it is about forgiveness. And I was put in a position where I had and was forced to understand that my mother may not make it out of this, and I have to forgive her. And so that day, my mom got put into a medically induced coma. And a day after that, the doctor told us that our mom had 24 hours to live. And I remember just hearing that, you just think like, this person is about to leave, they're about to go, and none of it matters. And so in those last moments, this is when I really started to hear the voice of God. See, if you want to know when you can hear God's voice, go through turmoil, because God will speak to you clearly. And if you use these coping mechanisms like weed and pills and alcohol, you won't be able to hear God's voice. But if you are in a space of humility where you're in a space with tears, you'll hear his voice. And in that moment, I heard the voice of God say, you have to lead your mom to salvation. And you got to remove the idols. And I remember going to my friend Keyshawn's house. And I remember as I was at her house, I remember she had lost her mother, and she was telling me kind of how she got through it. And I remember God telling me to remind my mom of the good moments. So when I went in there and everything was shutting down, and it was like my mom was turning into a vegetable, but hearing is truly the last thing to go, I could see a tear rolling down her face, because my mom used to love to write. And I remember her author name was going to be Snow. And I always used to think that my mom was going to be a famous person living in this bungalow, and that's what was going to help us. And I remember my mom writing, this children's book about these kids, and it was a train, and I just started telling my mom about it, and I could see the tears rolling down her eyes. And in that very moment, I told her, you may not have did everything right, but you did the best that you could, and we still love you, and you still were a good mom in your own way. And that was all that my mother needs to hear. And the next day, I was there. My sister was there. We knew that my mom was about to go. They called for the priest. My sister had to leave again to get my niece. And I'm in here, and I remember playing the song Oceans by Hillsong. And I was like, I never led nobody to salvation, God. How I'm going to lead somebody that can't even talk? Can she hear me? And I could close my eyes, and I could see my mom being embraced from that song. And I just said the salvation prayer. And I wasn't even all the way right myself. And my mother passed away shortly after that. And I got into a space, and how I was able to move forward is because when my mom passed away shortly after that, and me leading her into a space of salvation and me saying a salvation prayer, God showed me how to maneuver forward. He showed me my own strength. He showed me the things that I needed to do to get myself together. But most importantly, God showed me the power of forgiveness. When my mother had passed, I remember being outside of the funeral home, and my siblings were angry. They were furious. They were saying how she didn't do this and do that. And I remember thinking in my head that none of that mattered, that none of it actually mattered. And that all that mattered is that this is what we have now. And I remember saying that, God, I haven't experienced a good parent, but if you could show me what that looks like, if you could help me, I'll get to that space. I'll try. I forgave my mom before my mom passed away, when she had those 24 hours to live. And everything that I experienced, it didn't matter. And maybe right now you're in a situation where you don't know how to move forward and you don't know how to go forward. But I want to tell you something. You have your own life to live, and you have your own responsibilities, and you have your own testimony. And in order to be free from what you need, you cannot stay trapped in all of the things that happened to you, all the trauma. You got to go to therapy because I had to go to the therapy. You got to go to church because I had to go to church. You got to get connected to the women. You can join the Becoming for Kingdom Girlies. You got to, you can do that. The link is in the bio. You got to, put yourself in a position where you get around people who help you accelerate. But most importantly, you got to get in a position where you search for God, because his love is the only thing that's going to get you from where you're at. And so I encourage you, as we wrap up this episode, to remember that the book of Matthew reminds us to call no man on earth our father, for we have one Father and he is in heaven. And your parents may not do everything right because they may not be doing the things that God wants them to do. But it does not mean that you cannot heal and move forward. And I promise you that you will have so much freedom and liberty. I've only been able to tell y'all, because we only have a little bit of time, a brief part of my life. I haven't been able to tell y'all all of the in-betweens. There's a book that I'll write for that. But what I will tell you is that you truly can be a woman that becomes, if you decide today to make sure that you forgive your mother. I'm going to leave y'all with that, because forgiveness is for yourself and it's not for them. And I have so much freedom because I forgave my mommy. And it's time for you to forgive yours.